created a quick look at the parser method. Basically, it does some reformatting of the string that is passed in with taking out these quotation marks if they're present, splitting by commas, which is sort of how the data was broken apart, and then for each once I have that info array, which has all of each corresponding information, like total recovered, new recovered, whatever, would split it by the colon, which has sort of the value and the title of the data, and then would use that to sort of assign a title and a value. This right here is just fancy for if the date had multiple colons. So if I split it by the colon, then there would be more than just the title and the value. So if that's why I shifted out the title. And then if the corresponding array was just size 1, then I knew that means that I wasn't at the date and the value was just simply what was left in the array. Otherwise, you join everything back together with the colon. And then this right here is similar to what I did above for reformatting the date to just look pretty like how it looks down here. And then there's just a sort of case of the different possible values that the title could be. Once again, it's a little bit, I mean, it's not hard coded, but this is the values that the API returns. So this is also assuming that the API response stays consistent. So basically, for each one, you just update the return hash to include that value. This is fun. The reset button, or this reset method down here, is what I would do if I wanted to refresh the data, which I'll do now down in the terminal. When I reset in CLI, you'll see that I take the data loader or object that we have in the CLI scope and call the reset method on it, which basically, if I reset, then self here is the current instance of the data loader object that I'm working with. Sorry, the current instance of the data loader class that I'm working with. So basically what I'm saying is I'm writing over, I already have this data instance variable, but now I'm reassigning that data instance variable to a new call method, which means I'm reloading all of that data. And then immediately I call make summaries, which means that I'm going to push new values based on this data that I've loaded. I'm going to push new values for all my summary and country summary objects in. And just so that you're not concerned, where did I put it? I believe it's up here. I have to scroll carefully so I don't refresh the page. This reload data. So basically, before I even reload all of that, what I need to do, it would be bad to have all of my country summary objects and summary objects from the previous data version if you're just going to push all the new stuff in. So before I call that reset method to reload all the data and make all the new summaries, I clear both of my class variables for summary and country summary, which with this reset method that I will show you when I go through those two classes as well. So let's see. So this was updated at 1419. This is Greenwich Standard Time, or UTC 00, whatever that means. So I think we should see the data is new. Yeah, and we do. See, it's 1439. So that we have new data now. So we saw, I didn't, yeah, but there's new data. Even more people have coronavirus, which is sad, but hopefully also more people have recovered. So yeah, that's the reset method, and I'll walk you through the sort of the user navigation. So the summary object has all of these these attributes that you would need down here. Each data point is basically an attribute: the name, the new confirmed, total confirmed, new deaths, total deaths, all that stuff. As I mentioned, when I instantiate an object in this class, I use a hash, pass in a hash, which I call attributes here, and basically I just use metaprogramming for each for this hash. So I use this .send method, which basically is putting in the key value here. So it would say name equals and then the value in the hash. So for the global hash, when I do it, the name value is global, as you can see down here with this big in the cyan, the global word. So basically it says name the self.send command or method for the first iteration. When I'm using the name key with the global value, it basically says name equal, it creates a name equals method and assigns the value to it. Or sorry, I guess it doesn't create the name equals method, but it uses the name equals method and it assigns the value of global to it, which is pretty cool to have a one-liner here take care of instantiation for all of these different values. So yeah, and then I wrote about this in my blog post, but initially I did not have this line of code here. I actually had this line of code. And as a quick note, you'll see why that's an issue when we get to the country summary class, but this was not working, and I'll explain why. So I defined an .all method for the class, which just returns this class variable. And then once again, this reset method that I talked about earlier just takes that class variable array and wipes it out. Printing is pretty self-explanatory. Just I formatted it a little bit to look nice, but it just prints out everything that you already have in the object. So now looking at this doesn't work because I thought to myself, I'm going to be using so many of the same methods, or sorry, so many of the same attributes between the global summary and the country summary. The only thing that I really needed that was different was the country code for the countries. So then I thought to myself, well, why don't I just inherit, why don't I use my country summary class as a child of my summary class so I don't have to repeat myself. Otherwise I would have to here say name, total, recover, like all of these things. But instead I can keep my code pretty dry and not repeat myself and just have an adder accessor here of the country code, because since I'm inheriting from the summary class, I also have all of those attributes that were defined in the summary class. The same, and once again, I thought to myself, well, I'm using the same method, so if it's a hash, whatever hash I pass in here to my, or like when I instantiate a country summary object, it's going to use the same initialize method, right? Of course it does. So the problem was when I had this code, I didn't catch that I'm shoveling into the classes, the summary classes all method here. And also initially, this all countries was also named at all. So basically when I was running my code, I had all of the country summary objects in the summary class variable with the global summary, and in the country summary class variable, I had all of the country summaries, which is good, but I also had the global summary variable, which was not good. So I renamed the class variables so that they would be separate for unique, so that they wouldn't be basically pulling from each other. But then more importantly, what I did wrong here was I was shoveling everything into the same method. Like it was all unique. So, or sorry, it wasn't unique. So what I realized is that I had to do was I needed to take this what I really wanted to do when I instantiated was to take the current classes all variable, and both classes had a self.all class method. Or sorry, both classes had a self.all class method. So this line of code actually works because when I'm instantiating a summary object, obviously it works, but even when I'm instantiating a country summary object, because country summary inherits this initialize method, when I'm doing that, the self.class is country summary, and then .all means I'm actually returning all countries. So then this way, when I ran my code, the countries were getting stored in the all countries, and the summary, or the global summary, was getting stored in summary, and there was no overlap, which is perfect. Anyway, the rest of these methods are pretty self-explanatory. Find by name and find by code is basically just selecting if the country code equals what the user has put in, which is here, the name and the code. And I downcased it just to make it life easier for everybody. And then this is, printing the list of when the user wants to, look for a specific country. This is just the method that prints everything, and it gives the name and the country code of each object. This is print info, which is pretty similar to the summaries print all method, except that I also wanted to include the country code here. So you can see, like, let's see, I don't know. Congo, is that one? Democratic Republic of the Congo, is that one? I don't know. Let's see, Iraq. There we go. Yeah, so I basically, you can see that there's a country code here. I wanted to also include that so users would see that. So that's why this was not repeated or inherited from the summaries print all method. And then these last methods are really fun. They all follow the same pattern, so I'll just explain the most cases one, but basically create an empty array. I sort the array by whatever I want to sort it by. So for total confirmed, new confirmed, recovered, whatever. And then I get the number in most cases. I basically, I update this array with anything that matches the highest number of total confirmed. And then print them all out and say, this is, these are all the countries with the most number of cases. So I think pretty obvious that it's the United States. Yeah. So that is that. And I think that explains basically everything. And I've walked you through the entire app. So yeah, would not like to keep learning more. Take a breather from all of this coronavirus information, and thanks for watching. Yeah, wash your hands, practice social distancing, whenever possible. Thank you for checking out my app, and please feel free to use it. Open pull requests if this can be helpful in any project that you are going to take on. Thanks for watching.